Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Purdue lobs it to the other end. Zach Edey knocks it out of bounds, and the Purdue Boilermakers are the Big Ten tournament champions.
Final 9 seconds. Everybody on their feet. Proctor grinning ear to ear. And for Duke, the dynasty continues. They've won their 22nd ACC title.
3, 2, 1, ball game for VCU.
They got it inbounded.
And now it's done for the Rams. It's an Empire statement. They're going back to the NCAA tournament.
Houston couldn't do it. The Tigers, for the first time in history, beat a number 1 and win the American Championship.
Cabela sets for the second free throw. It is up, and it's no good. And the ball grabbed by Hawkins. Now the Bruins could tie with a 2. Here's McClendon for the win. It's no good, and Arizona is Pac-12 tournament champions again.
And that'll do it. 65-51, Marquette. The Golden Eagles are Big East tournament champions.
Good morning, Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. Happy to have you with us. I did not do my hair this morning. I know it looks like I did my hair this morning, but this is still, when you just put water through the gel of last night, it still gets stuck. So that is why the hair is still spiked up.
Guess what? We don't mind.
Normally I'm wearing a hat.
Listen, you come out with a beanie, a toque, a stocking cap, bald. Well, bald, we may have some speaks, but outside of that,
you imagine I just show up and it's clean. It's like, it is not just a shave, like you just fully shave your head, but it looks like Adrian's head.
I wouldn't have it. Hey man, you do you. I don't. I'm not Judgy McJudge over here with the old appearances. Whatever makes you comfy, as long as you got your Beanery coffee. And from the H&H Chevrolet studio, we're probably we're gonna get off to a good start. Do you like this?
I do. The new background. I don't know if anybody else noticed that we had a new background, but the curtain is gone. This was the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
This is the Wizard of Oz.
We should have
beautiful patchwork. Now, these two panels right here took about 24 hours to put up for some people, and then the other two took like 15 minutes for the other guy.
Did you know that there was an outlet up there?
No.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Nope. And he wrapped it well.
So maybe we should plug something in.
Like an X-Acto knife. But see, if you plug something in, right, because that's meant for a TV. So if you plug it in, then you have a cord hanging all the way down, and then it doesn't look as nice.
Don't want to get my hand game right. Not with the cords anyway.
No,
sir.
Anything happened this weekend? Anything?
Fudge,
anything to talk about today?
It started with an abysmal Friday, and the weekend got a lot better, though. Just a ton to catch up on. This would be a great time, because we won't get to everything. Shane, what's our clean up in aisle 4, man? Where
sports
we just
cleanup.
Sports cleanup.
Mm-hmm. That's later on in the show.
And just hit.
I don't even know if we'll get to everything in the sports cleanup.
Well, I
don't know how you can.
Do you know what kind of dawned on me? We didn't even talk about and I get it. Wasn't on a ton of people's radars, but We missed the whole Players Championship.
Yeah, TPC.
So it
Yeah.
was like,
And how about that performance by Scotty Scheffler
hey,
down the stretch?
so that it's just like, I feel like we missed that, but it's a lot going on.
I'm in the midst of watching Full Swing on Netflix right now.
That's unfortunate,
and it's really cool because I am like getting involved into the lives of these guys. And the first 2 episodes were really good. I'm only 2 episodes in. I have yet to watch 3 and 4. I think that's when somebody told me it wasn't as good as the first 2.
Listen, something's wrong with Netflix anyway. It just is. I mean,
in regards to
my show choices, it is. And listen, I'm not one of those guys that's trying to take money out of anybody's pocket. Lord knows. I mean, I've seen people hustle their way to big positions and not really know a thing about what they're talking about, but that's beside the point. So with Netflix, it's like you got 55 new shows that are like 5 episodes apiece. And you're done watching and you're like, man, I got way more questions than answers. Why'd they put this on?
I feel like The Watcher is still on your mind.
Well, that one did not make OT be particularly happy. But how about some of these ones where, like, I was watching the Texas Killing Field. There's a ton. I'm like,
haven't seen that one yet.
So I'm on
now.
This,
I don't know if I want to.
I'm on this like this murder in the Amish country or something like that. I mean, just some of it is like my choices. I think
you and me with our crime shows. Like if I see anything that's thriller, murder, mystery, whatever, I'm watching.
I'm going right to action, and in crime. And I watched your boy made a bad choice because Saturday was the first day that I can remember where not only did I only take one shower. Just one, which is extremely rare. I didn't get in my vehicle.
You just sat at home? A lot of games.
The whole day. The whole night. And didn't go to bed until like 2:30 or 3.
Oh.
Kid you not.
And then so tell me this. At 2:30, 3 o'clock, did the clock already change?
Yeah. I think it had just done it.
So when you thought you went to bed at 1:30, it was 2:30.
Yeah, because there's only 2 clocks in the house that don't do it on their own, and that's the microwave and the stove. And I didn't see that until I let the dogs out Sunday morning.
To keep you guys on clock, I use time.gov. It's the official time of the United States.
Yeah.
That has not updated yet. It's the official clock of the United States has not updated.
The United States thinks daylight savings time is unnecessary too now.
When I tell you I didn't leave the house, I didn't leave the house.
What did I do on Saturday?
I was furious from Friday, and so didn't sleep a ton. Talked with Coach Lamanji and Coach Queen and another cool family, the Thomas X. Friday night, headed home. Can't remember what I watched. It was basketball, like in my library. I wanted to see the seedings for nationals for wrestling. Didn't sleep great. Checked on Caleb in the morning.
I'm sure he didn't sleep great either.
Then I started. Oh, he's still mad. But the cool thing about him is like he's riding with his coach. We had an amazing conversation on the way home Friday night. And I told him, I said, listen, the floor is too low for this team. I said it all week, right? It's like when they're bad, they're awful. The floor is just too low for that basketball team, for the ceiling to be so high. That's an internal issue. That is there's no 2 ways around it, right? It's a total crapshoot, and just his he talked about the teams over the past 3 or 4 years, and obviously he's got a good relationship with Coach Simons because he had some insight that only Coach Simons could give him, and kind of the growth and like where they're headed and in the right direction, and what they need to do in the off season. And so, like, I was cool, kind of, and started the whole state championship deal over on Sunday morning or Saturday morning. From 9 a.m. I took a little break.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a ton of basketball. I watched an awful show. It was called The Ritual Killer. It seemed so
on Netflix.
It seemed, I don't know what it was on. Maybe it was on I don't know what it was on. But somehow I stumbled upon this movie. Thought it was going to be pretty good because it had Morgan Freeman. Yep. And, he's got a super cool
Cole Hauser.
Yeah. Who I actually like. Kind of, gruff.
Okay. So on
He's a little
IMDb.
A little overrated.
Do you ever look at IMDb before you tune into a movie or a show?
I am the king of IMDb. If I can't figure something, listen, I read IMDb watching The Godfather a few years ago for the first time. Couldn't keep up with the characters. Had my IMDb cheat sheet just to keep the families, and I'm dead though. Shane, remember that? Like I didn't watch The Godfather till like 3 years ago.
Is it bad that I still haven't? I have all 3 movies, right? Is it 3 movies?
I think there's a
4
Shane.
movies?
What's the one that you don't like that was the latest? And you're like they should have made it.
No, I like the third one.
Okay.
Is it 3? Is
There's
that
3 of them?
And then isn't there like
Nobody likes the third one though.
Isn't it like 4 hours long?
Bro, watched it through one night.
Well, they're all like 3 hours each.
Over Thanksgiving.
Okay, well, you can pull that off.
I binged 1 and 2 through the whole night.
Not me.
Yeah. Your boy went to bed at like 5:10. So anyway, yeah, I'm the king of IMDb.
How do you stay up that late?
Bro, I mean, look at me. I just don't. It's tough.
Like, what do you drink in the morning? Like how can I stay up this late?
So a little Spark. I only have a little bit left over. One of my coaches gave me like 3 canisters from, I don't know where it's from. Maybe Advocare. I don't know. This ain't DB for pimping other companies, but I just take it because I have it. It sits on top of my fridge. So there's a rehydrate and there's whatever that one is with amino acid and energy. Then I drink the cayenne, the honey, the amino acid, and kosher salt. Verzal's got me on this baking soda and salt deal. But I don't think that has much. I mean, obviously the energy thing has a lot to do with my energy, but it's my mind. It's my mind. I'm like, shoot, man. Furman plus 7.5. I kind of like Kent State. I'm going to pick against Indiana. I can't believe Scheffler. Like, just the way my mind works.
That just keeps you up.
I laid down Saturday night, and I'm like, what quarterback do the Carolina Panthers like that much? Like, that's all. I was just like, if I was a businessman, would I give up my short-term future? I felt like they got fleeced.
The only thing
I'm not going to be one of those ding-dong. You get some of these guys and go, I don't know what Carolina is doing. Yeah, well, it's clear what they're doing. There's a quarterback that they like. It's just at what cost? So there's all sorts of things. Like, why is Creighton just like Westside? Like, no, seriously. Like, when they're bad, they're awful. Yeah. When they're good, you're like, oh, man, they could beat anybody. Like, what's wrong with people? And then I got into the conversation with one of my buddies who shall remain nameless. He said, the thing that drives me the most crazy about young people, and I think it's people in general, once they show you they're capable of doing something, why is it so hard to repeat? Like, it's like you can be an 8. Why go back to a 2? You know what I mean? So that's why your boy didn't sleep. Anyway.
Yeah, you get a lot of things on your brain keeping you up.
As I'm driving here, it's whatever time, and I'm like, is this just the area for berries and cherries to ping?
Yes. I love that you're saying that now.
I got it from you.
I know. That's why I love
I
that
I didn't even know what you meant, what it meant. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Blue and red.
Mhm.
Like, what is it with this little stretch?
This stretch of road. I don't know if you saw that accident.
Oh, yes, I did.
Because normally I turn left there to go behind Costco. Behind.
I like how you say Costco too, by the way.
Is it Costco?
I don't know. I just like how you just kind of rolled off the old palate there.
And then I go behind Hale Varsity Club and I come in that way. But it looked like a T-bone accident.
Yeah,
Somebody
good.
turning left.
I'm just like,
tried to thread the needle.
I'm like, man, what's going on this morning where we can't focus? Maybe the third shift or whatever, but I don't know. I may experiment tomorrow. I'll tell you when I get here. I may go a new way to work. Just try something different.
A new way.
I'm thinking about banging that right and loop around by Toyota as opposed to coming to the light.
I've been that way before.
So where do I come out?
So you come out by Beyond Golf and Jimmy John's.
I wonder if it doesn't seem quicker, but these two lights right here are fatigue Jenkins. Like they suck.
Mhm.
And that turning, the lane to get off of Harrison to turn on to 126, that left-hand turning lane is only about 4 cars deep.
Mhm.
So if it's more than like 4 cars to turn left, like you're in other people's way. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't have enough room to turn left here. I know you want to scoot up. You know what I mean? Like, I feel bad.
Yep. I've gone right before.
By the way,
is kind of slow.
Don't watch The Ritual Killer.
I think it's only like 30 miles per hour on that road.
Spoiler alert.
Well, Ritual Killer is only 4 out of 10 stars on IMDb.
Dude ate an eyeball. Okay.
You know what? No. IMDb.
Muta.
No, get it. IMDb. Then no wonder you like IMDb.
Dude.
It spells you.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
Which, speaking of you, new season.
86% of the time, I don't know what's going on, so I need help. I always, I flirt with the plot synopsis. Do I read it? Do I not? It depends. How lost am I? Do I need a compass to find my way? How complicated is it? Yeah. You don't need one for The Ritual Killer. It was so promising. So promising. A lot of holes. Shane, you're the movie expert of the three. Do I know better if a runtime is 92 minutes?
Depends upon the movie. 92 minutes is pretty good for a comedy. 92 minutes isn't necessarily good for an action movie.
Fudge. I'm like, why'd you leave so much on the table?
Thrillers seem to be like 145, so
145.
90 minutes for a thriller seems a little short.
Can't remember what stupid documentary I stumbled on that only had 3 episodes, and I was like, did you not finish? Did somebody slash your budget?
Yes. That is the answer to that question.
Somebody.
Yes.
So why does Netflix? Why do they keep cranking them out?
Because I think Netflix struggles to get rights to things. Because the movies that are on there, there's like always like 2 or 3 recognizable films.
Yeah.
Whereas like there a lot of cartoons. There was Despicable Me for a while, and then The Hunger Games is on there.
I watched a lot of shorts.
I see a lot of like recognizable movies and TV shows, and then all of a sudden I see the big red N up in the top left-hand corner on
Nebraska.
a lot of shows. Yes, it is all of them based in Nebraska.
And they're probably probably waiting on a 12 o'clock announcement from Danny.
Everybody's waiting on that announcement.
I
right
don't know
now.
about everybody.
Everybody. Everybody.
Yeah.
I can bet you this. I bet people will open up Twitter right at noon.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Well,
they'll be curious.
Yeah, best wishes to whatever he chooses.
How many schools are on his list in total?
I don't know.
I was trying to remember.
I would always again. I'm not. Forget it, because I'm in one of those moods where I may say something that I'd have to explain later, so I'll keep it pushing. The other good thing about what's happening at Bellevue West today is, I think Bellevue West man is maybe in spring break. Because OPS, Shane would know he has no kid. Well, you don't have any. Well, who am I going to talk to? Listen, are Bellevue Public Schools on spring break? Because I know OPS is. But if you're Doug Woodard, are you still enjoying your run?
I'm sure you are happy about going out on a high.
Yeah, he's really, really good. Class act.
A legend.
So good defensively. They gave up. Listen. They gave up 28 points in 2 first halves in back-to-back days.
Mm-hmm.
And what did Coach Woodard say? You're like, Coach Woodard, if there was one word to describe your team, He's like, defense. And I was like, yes. Like,
I asked for one thing.
They're
Coach
so
Woodard's like,
good.
we have like 40 things that describe our
Do you
team.
know what I was surprised about? A lot of folks were hating on, because state tournament time is probably the only time you watch a lot of these teams statewide. A lot of people were not impressed with the skill level. And I could see it a little bit. I think, Miller North didn't make a field goal in the first quarter, which is really hard to do. Now, Westside tried, but it's really hard to do.
He's got jokes.
I got tons. But they're so good defensively.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you got the best player in the state, we saw so much, and we got to get to our brackets. You just got home last night.
Yes, and my voice is a little hoarse, and I knew it would be. I was yelling and screaming into a microphone all weekend.
Did you make your own
out in
hockey
Omaha.
jersey, or did they get that for you?
So, funny story. When I first got hired at UNO, they had this like a rummage sale. It was one of those like turnover sales.
I'd like that.
Yeah, you would.
Did I know you then?
No, this was prior to. This was like when I first got hired at UNO, and they had the. If you can compare it to anything, a lot of schools have like Nike sales or Under Armour sales where you can go and get it for like 40% off or whatever, 50% off. And so UNO did that with a lot of their team gear because they just had so much extra and they were getting new stuff. So you could get pairs of shoes for like $40. Like we got brand new basketball shoes that had never been opened out of the box for $40. Well, they also had a huge rack of hockey jerseys, and they opened it up to staff, I think, first before they opened it up to the public, staff and students maybe. And so I grabbed a jersey just because I'm like, ooh, it'd be really cool to have an Omaha jersey. Didn't even expect to be the MC that year. I was just, a jersey could be cool. I could hang it up someday. And then when I decided to be the MC, it was like a uniform piece for me to say like, hey, okay, this is how I'm going to identify myself out in Baxter Arena. And then 3/4 of the way through the season, this was when I was starting to take like some unnecessary jabs for saying make some noise. That was kind of like the phrase that I gravitated to, even though I'm not the first MC to ever say make some noise. I am probably
do people get after you about that?
Oh, they were like, oh, try something new. I remember a lady tweeted me one day and started tossing around. It gave me ideas of things that I could say to change it up. And one idea she gave me was raise the roof. Can you imagine? I'm out there on the ice, hyping up this crowd, hyping up the team. And I'm like, all right, fans, raise the roof. What are we in the 90s?
I don't know, man.
Raise the roof.
I tell you, you gotta be careful with social media. You can't seek counsel from people.
I don't. I actually had a coworker that always would tell me, because he was that person, and he would always be like, oh, Andrew, they said something else about you, and would just read it. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't care what anybody has to say. I always had like a few haters out there in the crowd. Haven't heard them this year.
We're going to talk to Mike Sauter later on.
So speak of haters.
He told me this weekend alone, he said he blocked over 150 accounts.
Well, because I was in the suite last night when he was there, and he goes, I said, you can just mute people so that they don't see you block them. He goes, no, I'm blocking them.
Hey, and he wasn't even passive aggressive. How about and he's funny, right? Like, because he can be so petty. But dude, he's like
Mike Sauter? No.
The little right hook. It was like a check left hook. It was like Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton.
The first thing he said to me when I walked in was, hey, we're boxing now.
Listen.
About what?
Check left hook. Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton was Sauter to Stoop Hospital.
Oh.
That was so childish. I was like, Mike, Frozen, man, let it go. And he tweets like he talks. Yeah.
I'll just leave this here.
We're here for it all Monday, man. 888-638-4876. You want to be petty?
It will be petty.
It will be petty.
Lots more to come. More CNC next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. I finally remembered what show/movie, I should say, I watched on Saturday. I was just telling DB, Luther, also on Netflix. I was trying to figure that out while you were giving your story because I'm like, ooh, he's giving me a lot of time right now to really figure this out, and I couldn't do it. So I'm like, I abort mission.
Two people that could tell you a lot about Luther. One, Vicki Benning, who is with Bloomberg News. She's big time. My sister, big Luther fan. Idris Elba is like her dude. And I don't mean Vandross. I mean like the show. He started on BBC. He's a detective, a very troubled detective. So The Fallen Son picks up after all of his escapades. Stop me if you've heard this before. Really good. criminal detective, doesn't really follow the letter of the law, finally catches up with him. But he's got to be.
That's the part I didn't understand.
He's got to be unchained because he's so good at his job. He's got a serial killer that's taunting him. Pretty much what I watched with The Ritual Killer. Another black guy is the lead. Wasn't as good as Idris Elba, though. But yeah, my mom, so it's a show, like Luther's a show. And again, it's mostly BBC. So if you like the English subtitles and stuff like that, you don't even need subtitles, but sometimes you do because of the thick accents. But like, it's a show. It's basically the Brits version of Criminal Minds was Luther.
Okay.
Dead serious.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
easy to draw that comparison for me now.
It's funny how you stumbled upon that because that almost made the cut. I looked at the trailer again. This was probably 12:30 a.m. Saturday morning. I looked at the trailer, but went back to The Ritual Killer.
Well, and The Ritual Killer is only about an hour and a half. Luther's about
Sucky.
2 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that could have played into as well, that late into the night.
Shane, what's my guideline again? 90 minutes is good for a comedy. About 2 hours for action. Where are we at with drama?
About 145.
Yeah. Left, 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 left. Get on board. That's a drama. Y'all brothers ain't ready. People used to come out to it. Some people thought it was like Pastor Troy's. Drama did the rendition.
You know, like 2 hours, 2 hours 15
Left,
for
right,
like
left.
sci-fi,
Go ahead and Google
action
it.
sci-fi.
Pop your head to that.
But I've heard it before.
Your Mama Rogers, she likes to dance. I don't know if she would be dancing to
Mama
that.
Rogers texted me and goes, "You didn't finish your Jersey story." I'm like, "Mom, we bounce around. We're like pinball machines."
Hey, so by the way, what do you do with that when it's not hockey season? Please tell me you don't wear it to your Blues bar or anything.
No, I hang it up in the closet.
Do you
It
wear
weighs.
jersey? Are you a Jersey guy?
Oh, you know I'm a Jersey guy.
Yeah, that's
You know.
unfortunate. I'm willing to overlook that.
No, my jersey though was I say was sick because Tarasenko got traded, but it was split down the middle, and my aunt made it so the left side is home and the right side's away, and the letters and numbers match the home and away jerseys.
So if another man's trash is another man's treasure, what is Tarasenko currently?
A guy that can only score
Still
and
another
on
man's trash?
occasion, yes,
Because he makes a ton of scratch
Mhm.
to be just okay.
Yeah, he was really good at the start of his career, and then I mean, I may have said this story before on air, but when he did not get the C on his chest,
Oh, yeah.
he
Basic meltdown.
just completely flipped off the light switch in his head.
Do you think we should probably set the lineup?
We
or-
probably should.
What
Should
do
I
you
finish? Let me finish this real fast. My Make Some Noise jersey, the reason that's on the back of it is because of the tagline, and my Learfield friends over at UNO, who are great people. They do some great work with us too here at Hale Varsity Club, Hurrdat Sports. But
I like that.
they treated me to that for all the work I helped them do, because I was essentially the voice of their sponsors, right, inside the arena. So by doing my job, they gifted me that on the back. So Lawlers, who is another huge partner of UNO and a huge partner for a lot of sports teams here in town, stitched on those letters on the back. So that's why it says "Make Some Noise." Full circle. Now we are done. Let's set up the show. So again, as DB put it, state basketball this weekend, Friday and Saturday. We will get into our thoughts on that. Plus, we're talking to Mike Sauter at 9:00 for the show to do a full state tournament recap. Selection Sunday, which drew a lot of people's attention last night, especially mine before the start of the hockey game. We'll look over the bracket. We'll look into some of our favorite matchups,
Especially as the week wears on. Tuesday, Wednesday. I got a couple things to look for.
There's one sleeper I like at 16.
What about the proverbial 5-12? There are some juicy 5-12.
There are, and those are actually pooled into an article that John Cassaway and Matt Eisenberg wrote for probability on upsetting in the first round. So they put together something like that. So we can look over that today.
If you'd like to know, they are Duke and Oral Roberts.
Which, oh my goodness.
Max, Max Asmus and company.
Can we just talk about like how the committee went about snubbing certain teams?
There are
in
some
March?
teams that got some tough draws.
So here's our poll question today too, because there's plenty out there. But which matchup had you saying, well, they got snubbed?
Go
ahead and give me yours, and then I'll give you the list of 4.
Well,
man, you could probably come up with the list of 4.
I think the biggest, in my opinion, is Kansas getting slid to the number 3 1 seed overall, shipped out of the Midwest. I didn't love that because then in return you put Texas as the second
the
2 in Houston's region. I didn't love that. I'm quickly going to get off the Indiana bandwagon because they have
Kent State's a good team.
Hey,
that's a good team.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Their 2-point field goal efficiency, fantastic. They don't let you get assists. Indiana turns the ball over. Kent State guards the 3-point line. They guard the perimeter. Indiana turns the ball over too much. Boy, I tell you, that 4-13 is interesting.
I'll tell you what, though. There's a couple of 7-10s.
You want me to finish
and
the 5-12s?
The
5-12s real quick?
Go ahead.
Miami and Drake. So Darren DeVries and company.
Yeah, Drake is a team that
a lot of people like
pulled
Miami,
in to that upset probability. I think let me get that percentage for
and
you.
San Diego State and your Charleston Shoes.
Yep, I like Charleston.
Candy,
what is Charleston? 31-3 on the year, something like that.
Most wins of any team in 41%
probability at an upset. Drake is a 39% probability to get that upset.
Well, Tucker DeVries, go get him. Must be nice if you're the coach's kid and your kid is really good.
Ask Coach Mack.
Hey, so we were in the car was it last week or a couple weeks ago? And, my little historian, Micah, was in the car, not realizing the prowess. He goes, Dad, you realize, like, Doug McDermott was making over 40% of his threes. Like, that's ridiculous. He's back-to-back player of the. I'm like, Breeze. I know. Like, dude was way good. Like, and he'd have like a quiet 30. You're like, how does that even happen? So we went through memory lane of stuff like that. But man, Creighton got a tough draw. Now NC State. Now they're going to have. Listen, you
think it was a tough draw? I actually felt it was more favorable.
NC State is reeling, but Creighton will have their hands full with Burns. I'm an ACC guy, and I've seen his act for NC State, but they're not playing very well right now. I think they're fortunate to be in 11, but I just wish I knew who
Creighton was.
I wish I knew.
So I was listening to John Fanta hold a Twitter space last night, a Big East men's basketball Twitter space, and Creighton's name did not get brought up as much as Providence. People loved Providence in that space, but when they brought up Creighton, John also couldn't figure out who that team was.
Oh.
And that's a problem when you have a guy that covers the Big East and knows the ins and outs of everything and still can't figure out the preseason ranked 9th team to open the year. It's a problem for this team.
Yeah. They got a chance to kind of. So the cool thing about sports, and this is why I love it, is you can control your own destiny. So they have a chance to quiet the critics. Second weekend, you put yourself in a good spot because what happened this past week in New York City?
That's a bad loss against Xavier. A very, very bad
from
loss.
Start to finish. So, we'll get into it.
And as you said, when things are bad, they're bad.
It's like, wowzer.
More Selection Sunday talk next. Stick around.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
It's over. Impressive, dominant. Win the regular season by 2 games. Win the conference postseason tournament. Marquette champions in the Big East this year of everything.
As college basketball teams prepare to make an impact at the NCAA tournament, you can make an impact too here locally by being a big brother or a big sister. Think about this. Little brothers and little sisters are more likely to maintain or improve their emotions, decrease risky behaviors, improve their confidence in school, and maintain or improve their grades when they have a big. Big Brothers, Big Sisters mission is to support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. Go to mentoromaha.org to sign up and become a big today. Hey, Selection Sunday was even more interesting for me, and we didn't get to the poll question, which I'll read here, and then I'll move on with my point. But when I said, which matchup had you saying, well, they got snubbed in the first round, would you choose Mizzou, Utah State? Would you choose Duke, Oral Roberts? Would you choose Texas A&M and Penn State? Or would you choose Texas and Colgate? And I'm happy I ended with Texas Colgate because I think Colgate as a 15 may be the biggest punch in the face to that group that I've ever seen.
That's a good bunch. But having said that, I mean, listen, you got a pretty good chance. And I just kind of did some mental gymnastics over the last 12 hours, right? So I'm not all in yet, but it looks like a potential all Big 12 Sweet 16 with Iowa State and Texas. I actually think when I look at it, because I mean, how healthy is Sasser and his groin? Because if Sasser's not healthy, Houston can't score. So
Right.
I mean, listen, Kelvin Sampson is a stud, but Sasser's
And they have Walker.
Sasser's the dude. I mean, listen, he scored 50% of their points in the semis.
Yeah.
Right? Before the
an All-American.
Before the ground injury. So fudge. Texas to me looks like a team that as the two could have a good run to the Final Four. But
it's not an easy ride there, though.
No.
Because you have Colgate, then you have, if I'm choosing here.
I don't like Colgate as much as you, but I get it. But Texas is on a roll.
And they're way good. The next matchup, though, A&M, Penn State, either team here. Let's talk Penn State first.
Two hot teams.
Maybe the second hottest team in college basketball right now. Penn State, 8 out of their last 10. If I said the hottest team, I'm thinking Duke when I say that.
Yeah. Who I've been talking about for a month now. And at that time, they'd only had 4 in a row, and nobody liked.
Yeah,
nobody liked their wins. Nobody
up.
liked their wins. Right. I can't remember who we talked to, and I was like, "Hey, man, the team I don't want to play right now is Duke," and I can't remember who it was, but they're like, "Yeah, well, those wins are against." I'm like, "I'm just telling you, they're getting healthy." And I'm all in on the ACC, which is why I think Virginia may be in trouble against Furman, but we'll get to that whenever. I mean, you've got Texas scorching, right? I think Penn State's playing well. You just mentioned
Texas
A&M, who's such a resilient bunch. How about Bama's path, though?
Okay.
It looks a little cakey.
Well, because you'll face the winner of Maryland, West Virginia. As long as SEMO doesn't upset them, SEMO, a 16 team, watch out. They can compete. I don't know if they're competing with Brandon Miller, but I'll call them a sleeper team.
The human bucket.
Well, and Bama's unique because for the longest time it was, hey, how are they going to respond to everything that's happening behind the scenes? And Brandon Miller was able to block things out. The rest of the team was not. But now it seems like the rest of the team is caught up to Brandon Miller. And they're playing
at a high level.
At a very, very high level right now. Texas A&M, though, let's just talk about this, DB. Last year, goes all the way to the SEC championship game, doesn't get in. This year goes all the way to the championship game, and they're like, yeah, you can play Penn State.
Yeah, it gets to 7.
Are you kidding?
Tough matchup. I mean, what's that? Basically a toss-up? I'm sure
the lines are out.
I'm sure the
because
lines
Mizzou, I remember seeing, is actually a dog to Utah State.
Which I'm a little surprised, but I don't know much about the consistency in terms of how Missouri wants to play basketball because it's a total crapshoot for them. Utah State's a 2-point fave.
Mm-hmm.
Wowzer. How about Illinois and Arkansas? Pick that one.
Well, both teams are doctor inconsistent.
That Oral Roberts Duke game, though, for as hot as I think Duke is, well, I tell you what, Max Asmus is the real deal, but that team is better, in my opinion. Even though they're missing a key cog from a year ago, that team is better than they were a year ago because I think the supporting cast is better as a whole.
Oral Roberts?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they had the 7-5 edition of Vanover. Is he an Arkansas guy? Yeah, I mean, you brought size to that team. You already had the scoring out of Max Asmus. You have some good guard play on that team too. Now they rolled through the Summit. Not to say that they played anybody crazy all season long, but also give Oral Roberts credit for being as good as they are.
Oh yeah,
I mean, no matter if you play in a cake conference or not, it takes a lot to be undefeated in your conference.
How about Michigan
especially in
State
basketball?
Drawing SC.
Yeah, that's a tough one to choose.
I don't know, man. I assume Chalk will reign supreme, but would not surprise me at all. I don't know. It's been kind of a mix-up, but how many 1 seeds do you feel good about? Bama?
I feel good about Bama.
I don't love Purdue, but I haven't all year.
Well, and Purdue probably has the hardest path out of any 1 seed.
So therefore, they'll probably be in the
If
Final
Sasser plays, I like Houston. I think people are undervaluing them.
Yeah.
Even though they are a 1, I shouldn't say undervalued. People aren't out. Like the committee isn't. But, whenever somebody sees Houston there, they're like, I don't know. Houston doesn't play a lot of teams all season long, but let's remember that they do have Sasser, Walker, Roberts. I mean, this may be the best Houston team we've seen under Sampson. And then it all just boils down to, can the team that plays in the West Coast Conference, a conference that ranks 9th in Ken Palm's rankings, compete against the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, etc.?
You know who's got a tough draw? Northwestern. And I love Northwestern with Adige and Boo Buie and company, but man, Boise State will give them all. That game is virtually a toss-up. That's gonna be. There's just some really good matchups. And I'm worried about the team that I've been backing in the Big Ten because I hate that matchup. Kent State.
You're all over it.
I am. You want to?
That's your team. Colgate's my team. His team's Kent State.
Well, I'm going to give you 2 small schools that have a chance to. And Vegas is letting you know you better respect these 2 teams. Kent State and Furman are 2 very, very, very live dogs. I've seen this with Virginia time and time again, especially this year more than any. Their offensive lulls are dangerous. Danger! Whoop, whoop. Get on the floor.
Did you see Furman is now only...
It's 7. I looked at it right away. It's 7, right? Or am I losing my mind?
There's no way I'm looking at the wrong thing here. West Virginia, Maryland.
Yeah.
Okay. Hear me out here, DB.
Okay, I'm listening.
Why am I seeing that Furman is a 2.5-point favorite?
That's not right.
Why am I seeing that?
I don't know.
I'm on your side. I'm on your favorite scores and odds. Why am I seeing that?
I saw it last night at 7,
but I'm seeing something wrong here. Something has to be wrong because now Utah State's not matching up to their line. What is wrong with this?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
All right, now it's back to 5.5. I don't know what I clicked.
So it's 5.5 currently?
Yeah.
So so when the brackets come out yesterday at 5, in 12 hours, 14 hours, that's bad math. 13 hours, and 8 of that, people should have been asleep. The line's already come down. Furman's a live dog. Yeah, if you could have grabbed 7 right out of the gates, I probably would have. Virginia's in trouble.
Yeah, well, that's a team too that can't hold off or can't really extend the game. They're so defensive centric that they're okay with winning by 3, with winning by 5. They're not a team that will say, "Hey, I'm going to put up a 20-point game on you." Watch out for UC Santa Barbara too against Baylor.
Pace. So the thing is, Baylor is so frenetic, and Flagler, and you got one of the best freshmen in the country. I don't know if the Gauchos can score enough. What's the number? Do you know
I do not know off the top of my head.
Top of your melon. I didn't really pay much attention to that early, but I don't think the Gauchos can. Oh, it's only 10. So it isn't gaudy. And not gaudy at all.
Before we wrap this thing up and talk to Sam McKewon, the last game quickly that I want to mention is Memphis, the team that beat Houston.
Yeah. A Sasserless
Houston, yes, but they have a lot of size. Hardaway's teams are known for size.
Wow. He'll have them believing too.
Well, they're going to give FAU trouble in the first game. If FAU doesn't come out of that, Memphis is going to probably be a team that shapes up the best against Zach Edey, just because of just sheer physical size.
And they can smother that backcourt. Lawyer and company better come to play.
Sam McKewon up next. Stay with us.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. 590 ESPN Omaha, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. Happy to have you with us on this Monday morning, and happy to now be joined by Sam McKewon, the sports editor and Nebraska columnist for the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. Sam, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Sam, good morning to you.
Busy weekend, no doubt, but the biggest news that kind of got buried underneath state basketball and Selection Sunday and everything else taking place this weekend was the Chicago Bears trading the number 1 overall pick, Sam.
That's right. It was big news in Chicago.
What do you think? What do you think?
Oh, I like it. I'll take the receiver. I mean, the Bears don't have very good receivers. So I'm happy about that. Obviously they were going to trade the picks, the 1 pick, and they were going to get picks. I thought they got a pretty good trade. When you go down to number 9, you gotta pick smart. So they're going to have to pick the right guy at 9, and that's I just say they're going to get a good football player at 9, but they're not picking the 3rd pick, and so I think you've got to be smart about who you select there. But they'll get a pretty good pick in 2024 because I don't think the Panthers are going to turn it around that fast. So I don't mind it. I like what they got. Now the pressure's off. There doesn't have to be a big month-long countdown. They can focus on getting the best player they want at 9, and they got a pretty good receiver out of it too. Now, they're going to have to probably give him a contract, and we'll see what they do. But I thought Ryan Poles did a nice job.
So it's interesting. You're one of the few Bears fans that isn't gushing. Is it because you have stress disorder? Because I'm looking at the numbers, Sam, and I don't have any skin in the game. It seems like he didn't give up a ton to get a lot.
Well, no, they gave up the number 1 pick, and they basically gave up the right to select whatever quarterback they want. And there's a lot of talk. So there's no one great quarterback. That's the thing.
Yeah. So do you feel comfortable saying that? Because what if they didn't want to? How about just the player they like? Because I don't think it was going to be a quarterback to begin with.
Well, there's one player, and he's in a messy situation. There's only one player that you would have picked at that spot.
Oh, Jalen Carter.
So, yeah, and so if it wasn't a quarterback,
he could still fall to 9.
So,
maybe
he certainly could. He could fall off farther than that too.
Hey, when's that date? April 16th or 14th, or when is that? The court date? I think it's the 14th or the 16th.
I don't know when the court date is. For him, I don't know. And again, that's not going to keep him out of the NFL. That's not going. He's going to be in the NFL at some point. But I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily what they want. He's not a pass rusher, so can you go get the pass rusher you want at 9? And of course, you can get a quarterback at 9. Patrick Mahomes went 10. So yes, of course. But the challenge with knowing who Patrick Mahomes is going to be is related to the system that he's in now and the players that are around him. If you take Patrick Mahomes and you put him somewhere else, would he be Brett Favre, or would he be, somebody that threw a lot of touchdowns but also made a lot of mistakes? Patrick Mahomes is the perfect marriage of the quarterback, the system, having the players around him, the coach. And so I don't know that it's that simple all the time. It's, let's just go get the guy that's like Patrick Mahomes. So I don't think they would have done that, and so I like what they're doing here. No, I'm happy with where they're at, but I'm objective. I think you just have to see how it goes. And the Bears have a long climb. It's time for them to be in the NFL playoffs every single year. Packers are in trouble. They're in trouble.
Yeah.
Whether they keep Rogers or they don't, that franchise is not what it was. And, the Vikings do what the Vikings always do. So the division's there for the taking. This isn't, there's no longer kind of like the division the Steelers are in. You can just tell that the Steelers and the Packers held a grip over their respective divisions for a long time, and it's wide open. And so it's time for any team in that division to take over.
And with free agency starting this week, they have a lot of money to spend too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's change gears here, Sam, and talk
about Carolina and their cap space.
Oh, yeah, that too. Let's change gears and talk about Selection Sunday. We'll start with the local team. It's not the commanding red hot team people were expecting at the start of the year, but they did seem to get a favorable draw last night opposed to some other teams. In terms of difficulty, do you think this team has the potential to meet the early season expectations now of an Elite Eight or better because of where they're seated?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have happened. There's a lot of things that could have happened at Creighton, and it would not have been good. They could have been shipped, 1,500 miles away. There's a lot of things that could happen. They got to go to Denver, and they get to play a team that, if nothing else, is going to want to get it up and down. And Creighton has no problem scoring and running. Then they get to play a team that, okay, Baylor is a better team than Creighton maybe, but Baylor is not playing that well. And they're also kind of a gimmicky team. This isn't the Baylor team from a couple of years ago. This is kind of the Baylor team they lost to 9 years ago in the NCAA tournament. So, if you figure out how to beat them, and Iowa State's done that, and Iowa State's coach just happens to be Greg McDermott's probably his best friend, darn close to it. You got a great chance. You're going to have a fan advantage in Denver because Baylor's, we all know what the Baylor's fan base is not. It's comprised of about 2,000 people in basketball that travel with them. So you're going to have a fan advantage. You're probably going to have a home court advantage in Denver. And then you're going, if you win those two, and I don't know, somebody said UC Santa Barbara might beat Baylor, and I don't think that's true. But
no.
But, if that happened, well, then you're playing UC Santa Barbara, which has got 9 people there. And so then you're going to the Yum Center in Louisville, and you're playing Arizona. Arizona's a good team. They're better than Creighton, and they've already beaten Creighton. But they beat Creighton out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it won't be easy for Arizona to travel halfway across the country. So, yeah, absolutely. Now, Final Four, that's a tall task given who's in the region, and that team's going to come out of the other side. You can just almost guarantee it. They're very good, and as my colleague Dirk Chatlin said on Twitter last night, the tough region is the West, and so if you look at that one's pretty stacked. I don't think this region is nearly as stacked, and I think it's designed for Alabama to get all the way home and to get to Houston. So, yeah, Creighton's got a really good path, and the first game. Now that team has played a lot of good teams. I don't care if the ACC only had 5 teams in the tournament; it's still the ACC. They're not going to be intimidated, and if they make shots, they're going to be hard to beat. But they don't play much defense, and I think that's probably good news for the Jays.
Andrew asked me this morning my biggest takeaway, and number one, I didn't even hesitate. I said I think Kansas got jobbed. Number one, getting shipped out of the Midwest.
Yeah.
Houston doesn't have Sasser. They lost their conference tournament as well, and they jumped Kansas to the Midwest. Kansas playing without their head coach, lost to a hot Texas team, and they get shipped to the West. I was like, wow, that did not seem – I don't know. See, it seemed a little off, and I completely agree. The West is loaded.
It is. So the West region is loaded now. They got shipped to the West, but they got shipped to Las Vegas, and that ain't quite the West. I mean, that's like there's going to be a lot of Kansas fans playing blackjack. It's pretty good. Like it's.
Yeah, you also have Gonzaga and UCLA and Arkansas and Illinois and TCU and St. Mary.
Yeah, it's a
UConn.
hard. Yeah.
Listen, that's a monster. Okay, that's a
hard.
monster.
But if you put yes, if you put that group in Kansas City, it would have been easier. But yeah, and Gonzaga knows how to get to Las Vegas. I mean, they'll have a lot of fans there. And yeah, it's easily the toughest region. Maybe what Kansas can hope for is that, you know, they don't have to play the entire side, 2-3 side. They only have to play one team on that side. So, you know, we'll see. Arkansas, Illinois is a fun game. Won't surprise me if Illinois wins it, even though Arkansas's got more talent. Won't surprise me if Illinois wins it. And then you get Brad Underwood against Kansas. You just never know. I mean, Brad Underwood will coach his tail off against KU. So we'll see. And Des Moines is close to Illinois too. Like, I mean, you know, that's just a drive over. So Kansas, if they get all the way to the end of it, will have earned their way. And Houston, you know, they're a good team, but I don't actually anticipate they're going to be there when it comes down to it. I don't think they're going to make it all the way home.
We're talking to Sam McKewon, sports editor and Nebraska columnist for the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. Toss him a follow on Twitter at SW McKewon OWH. Sam, there are two super hot teams in March, and one's Duke. The other is a Big Ten school, Penn State. What do you make of their draw against Texas A&M, another very good team that made it to the SEC final for 2 straight years?
Penn State's the team that I think Nebraska probably wished it was.
I remember they used to be a comp like 7 years ago. Remember? That was fun.
Yeah, you know, I think Penn State does the things that Fred Hoiberg would love to do, and they shoot a ton of threes. They play really, really competent basketball in a lot of ways, and so that's a team that I think they would, Nebraska would like to be. Penn State got a bad draw, and so I think they're gonna have a hard time winning their first game, you know, and they're playing a good team, and you know, if they get through it, then maybe they can work through to the next weekend. Duke is, you know, I think John Shire is doing a nice job, and I wouldn't describe myself as a Duke fan, but maybe I'm more of a Duke fan if he's there, you know, and he's, you know, he's got a little bit of humility to him, and they're going to be tough. The other team that I would say is hot is Marquette.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I'm glad they got up to a 2 line. They deserved that. They did. I was concerned Baylor was going to stay at a 2, and that would have been ridiculous. Marquette's going to Final Four on my bracket. That's one hell of a coach. They got a great point guard.
Now he's back to being that again. That's funny. At Texas, the
Well,
job was
I know.
too big for him, and now he's one hell of a coach again. It's how people.
To his credit, I think. Yeah, I agree. To his credit, I think he knew what the best fit was for him, and you know, to his credit, and I don't. The Texas job is a strange one. It's not an easy job, and it's harder in football even. But he always was a good coach, and he's at a good spot for him. And he's got good players, and they're going to be a hard team to knock out, in my opinion. I think they're, you know, what they did in the Big East tournament. And I know they almost lost to UConn, but beating UConn in Madison Square Garden is basically like beating UConn and UConn. So, you know, they're really good, and so I think Marquette's going to make the Final Four in my book. Duke will fall short. Penn State, I don't know. You know, it's hard to say. I feel bad that they got the game they got, but, you know, I feel bad that the Big Ten feels it necessary to run the thing all the way to Sunday afternoon. I assume that's done for TV considerations, but, you know, Penn State just basically played an NCAA tournament in 4 days. And so now they've got to try to find a way to recoup and rest. And, you know, there's a reason why some of those teams don't play that hard in that event. I don't think Tom Izzo's ever prioritized the Big Ten tournament. It showed. It showed playing Ohio State. So, you know, I tell you that I thought Michigan State had a better chance of making a run than Penn State based on, you know, not spending 4 days or 5 days in Chicago. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Hey, Sam, let me switch gears real quick. We've heard a lot about the big March 25th weekend and recruiting, and it seems like, and maybe it's just me because I've unplugged, so I'm fully admitting that. But it seems like we've cooled a little bit on the Raiola silent commit coming to Nebraska, this whole deal. Well, there's some people, March, that weekend and whatever. Kalen will announce today. I don't think those two things for Nebraska anyway are connected at all. It's because I don't think Nebraska thinks he's coming there, and I think they're okay with that. But is the next momentum buzz post March 25th, or is it later than that for you at sometime after spring ball?
I think it's entirely possible they can get a commit or two March 25th. I don't know that Dylan Raiola will be that person. They're going to have a lot of guys in town, so I don't want to say it won't happen. But I would be surprised if they got a ton of momentum that day. I think what you do is you have a junior day. You lay the groundwork, and then you see what you got on spring game day, because you can start paying for the visits here pretty soon in April. And so maybe you can bring a couple of these kids back. I'll be curious to see what Matt Rule's speech down in Kansas City, which is very important. If that attracts any more kids here in the next 3-4 weeks. One of the smarter moves Rule has made.
He said last week. Going there last week, that was a big deal for him. He wanted to really reestablish some presence in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's been good. Nebraska spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get in St. Louis over several coaching staffs. And I'm not saying that's not important, because St. Louis has turned out some incredible players that went to Ohio State, mostly Oklahoma, a few to Missouri. But they've lost the grip in Kansas City since Bo left. And how many good players they got out of Kansas City under Bo? Pretty good players. The Davis twins, Malik Collins, Freedom Akamoladune, Michael Rose-Ivy. I mean, there's a whole bunch of players they got out of Kansas City. And since Bo left, Bo Pelini of all people, since Bo left, and John Garrison left, and whatever, they've gotten Bo Wilson and then Jaden Dawes just here recently. That's it. And that's just not good enough. And so Rule going down there, I think, was a great thing. I mean, Dylan Raiola. We've had, I think, a good conversation about this. It's going to be hard for Nebraska to make it work, but I think they can do it, and they're going to have to. I don't think the dynamics will change on March 25th either. I don't think there's another player who could commit to Nebraska that's going to convince him. Because USC is going to mark every good player that Nebraska gets with some good players. So, I think the dynamics are still the same, and those decisions will just have to be worked out and made. And, I wouldn't fault the kid for anything he does, or his family for anything they do. I think that going to Nebraska would be more financially lucrative than it would be to USC, but who knows? Maybe there's a benefactor at USC that's willing to pony up a lot of NIL money. USC has a lot of rich donors, more than Nebraska does. So we'll see. I don't know.
Sam, what do you think? What do you think Danny does today with his announcement?
Pick somewhere else. I think the three finalists are Missouri, North Carolina, and Colorado. Missouri,
that's my guess.
Spot. Yeah, so I think I talked to Danny a couple weeks ago, and it's just been so busy we didn't write it up. We'll try to talk to him again today. I think for him, it's just been a really good journey. He's done this for a long time now. He's been on the recruiting trail, so to speak, for 3 years, and he was very intentional in the way that he went about it. Much more intentional than most kids who go into this. He pursued and was not just merely pursued. And so I think he's probably done a lot of homework. And if that's where he goes, Brady Cook and Connor Bazelak have had success in Missouri. Eli Drinkwitz is a dynamic guy.
Yeah, he's done a good job.
He'd love to get a foothold up here. And if they're able to do that, then I think, for example, unlike Mike Gundy, and then Mike Gundy's a good coach too, I don't know that Mike Gundy is going to be coming up here and necessarily doing a ton of recruiting per se. After Zane Flores, maybe if Zane's great down there, then
well, he got the better quarterback. I mean, so that's kind of a weird. I mean, he doesn't have to.
But you know what I mean? Like yeah, he did, but like I think Eli Drinkwitz would love to get 2 or 3 players out of Omaha.
Yeah, he's definitely trying.
Right. I don't know that Mike Gundy cares that much.
Yeah, I get you.
And Mike Gundy's a different person.
I get you.
He's a strange person. But he's different. Drinkwitz, but they've been making an effort to recruit Omaha, and so I think this would be an opportunity for them to get in. There's a lot of schools that have been trying to recruit Omaha hard, and rightfully so. Kalen will probably go, if he goes down there. Danny will turn around and be a very good recruiter for Missouri, and it's a weird situation, guys. You know, for the second straight year, it's very likely that the top prep quarterback in the state is going to pick somewhere else to go than Nebraska. Last year was Nebraska's fault, in my opinion. This year, I don't know that I can say that, because if at the end of this thing, Dylan Raiola is at Nebraska, and you got 9,000 scholarship quarterbacks down there to begin with, which they do.
9,000.
Then I just don't know if you. I don't know if you can blame. I don't think you can put any of that on Nebraska. I think you got to go after Dylan Raiola. You know, you just have to, and there's just no other choice. And you got to wait for his commit. You can't take some other kid's commit and then tell Dylan Raiola whatever. So Danny needs to commit now, and feels like he needs to commit at the beginning of March instead of.
I am a little surprised it's this early, but I mean, I get it. I mean, the offers are what they are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm surprised. The offers weren't going to change. The only thing that would change by May is Nebraska's situation.
Yeah.
Or
how committable they were, which I have no insight to. I assume they're all legit. So, I mean, it just seems, and listen, I mean, it's good that if I'm all for somebody knowing where they want to be. And if you do, man, go get it, because I think that's the best way to do it, because it's hard to win and it's hard to be good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. And I think, again, he's another one who has been doing this a long time. So, you know, he probably has a better idea of what he wants to do. I just, again, the challenge is that Nebraska really can't take any commits right now, because they have to wait it out with Raiola. And I wouldn't have expected Dylan Raiola to be ready to commit by now. So we'll see where it goes.
Sam, you're the best, man. We appreciate your time. We'll talk again next week.
All right, take care.
Sam McKewon at SW McKewon, OWH on Twitter. Coming up, a lot still to unwrap. We'll get into NFL, more Selection Sunday, and more. Stick with us.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Awesome conversation with Sam McKewon in our previous segment. If you missed it, or if you missed anything on the show, make sure to check it out on the podcast app. You can find that Apple, Spotify, at Hail Varsity Radio. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, happy to have you back with us on Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio. We opened with Sam because he's a big Bears fan. I'm a Bears fan too. Did you know that? Did you know I'm a Bears fan?
You, Michigan Lance, there's a lot of you guys running around here.
Bears trade away the number 1 pick to the Panthers. Ursel. You brought up a great point at the beginning, or a great question, like why now? Seemed like a big haul for the number 1 pick. The only thing that I was able to wrap my brain around when I saw this trade happen was, well, for one, the Panthers must know who they want, because they didn't want anybody else to step up and do it. And if timing matches up, I think it's Anthony Richardson. He had an outstanding combine, and then 6 days later, roughly, this trade goes down. Why trade right now if it weren't for, hey, I'm worried about somebody else trading up and trying to get Anthony Richardson?
Yeah. I mean, they can. So a lot of people were kind of like, oh, what do you do with DJ? Like, why would you let DJ Moore go? I think they can get another receiver. So I don't worry so much about that. Is you better have been right because of the draft picks. That's my thing. I love DJ Moore. I think he's fantastic. And DJ Moore flourished with just so quarterback play. Now, will that help Fields? Fudge, I don't know, man. I'm not all in on Fields in terms of
Passing.
like the passing game.
He's got weapons now. There's no excuse anymore.
0. Now, we'll see what you guys do up front. But you have stockpiled picks.
Yeah.
And you're still going to get a really, really good player at 9. I don't care who it is.
Well, if it's not Jalen Carter, who I alluded to, because I saw McShay had him drop to 11, I think it was, to Houston. But some people have him going at like 6.
So what's Jalen Carter guilty of? He's guilty of being immature. Right? He apparently allegedly, with not full disclosure with what, or being forthright with what he knew about the accident, kind of changed his story. A couple months earlier, he was driving fast again, I believe, whatever it was, 80-some and a 50-some. So he likes to drive fast.
A lot of people like to.
No, hear my heart though. I'm not downplaying the fact that somebody died and you appeared to be indifferent, because you could just be that selfish. I don't know how. You have to be real clear, because a lot of times people hear.
It's a sensitive topic.
They hear and they listen differently. So if I'm an NFL exec, how much do I feel like that matters if he can help me win football games? That's basically what they're deciding. And is that a talent that can slide 10 spots because he was indifferent and irresponsible about the details of what happened during drag racing? And I don't want to, I say it like that because that's what it is. I don't say it like that because I'm minimizing the situation. I'm just telling you that those execs, that's what they're thinking. That's what they're going to say about the situation. That's how they're describing the situation. That's where we're at with it. But he's the best overall football player in the draft. So they have to decide how much that situation is worth.
It's tough because you bring up a great point. We are not trying to take away the fact that
that's not the issue.
An incident occurred. Like by talking about this is what I'm saying. But in regards to his story not being all there, like, have you ever lied before?
Yes.
Right? Just in general. Doesn't have to be for anything super crazy.
100%.
Whenever you are scared, you lie. Like this is a situation that brings about a feeling of being scared, because even though you weren't in the actual vehicle next to your current car, you were involved in the situation. So you're scared about everything that happened. You're also probably very, very sad and depressed with how the situation turned out.
Yep.
So for him,
probably, I would add embarrassed.
Yeah, and embarrassed. I didn't dive too deep into that portion of it, but I will say this, that, when it comes to press, some teams just don't want that. They may not want that press. There's a lot of other situations in the league, though, that come along with bad press. Does that stick around? No. That press never stays like it's there. People remember it, but it never sticks with that person throughout their entire career. People move forward. That's how the society works. So if Jalen Carter does fall as far as people think that he will, it's kind of like and a totally different situation. But remember when Laramie Tunsil was supposed to be a really high draft pick, and then day of the draft he comes out wearing a gas mask and doing some
an old video resurfaced on draft
and
day.
All of a sudden he drops to 28 or whatever he fell to. So, but how often do you look at Laramie Tunsil now in certain football organizations? Like it just doesn't stay. It just doesn't stick. So if the Bears ended up with him at 9, I'd be over the moon, because you didn't lose anything. All you did was gain.
How far did Joe Mixon drop?
He dropped a decent ways too.
I know where he got drafted. I just don't remember where he was projected to go. And then I look at Mixon now, and I'm like, if draft execs had it to do over again, based on what they saw Mixon from a production standpoint, being a good citizen, whatever, in the Bengals organization, was the altercation that he had at the restaurant, was that worth draft stock? That's what these guys always have to process. I mean, it's not one of those things where it's like, yes, you're weighing the gravity of the situation, but you're trying to figure out as an exec, how much does what occurred have to do with who we think this person really is? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how closely connected are they as the individual to the action performed, or is this one of those situations where that's not who he or she really is? I mean, that's basically what they're sorting through.
And how much do you have to take into account that he's 21 years old?
Where did Mixon go? Was he third round?
Second
round?
So I just looked it up. The draft order in 2017, running backs wise, was Fournette, McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. So if he fell,
that is unbelievably good.
If he fell, was he supposed to be before Dalvin in that draft?
I don't think so. Because I remember coming out. I remember that. I didn't love Fournette. I liked McCaffrey. I was a little biased because he, we had met him in person. But Cook was my favorite.
Cook was the man at Florida State.
I felt like he was going to be a steal. And I don't remember really how I felt about Mixon. I just felt like, it's always funny. When the situation was happening, obviously Oklahoma Tyler is like one of my boys, and we just were going through that situation. And I always joke, WWBD, right? What would Barry do? And I always kind of chuckle when people tell me what they would do in a situation and what you can't ever do. You should never do this, or you should never do that, unless you've been in a similar situation. And as a guy who, and I saw him yesterday, Kurt McKeever. He said, "Oh, Kurt," I said, "Man," I said, "one of the reasons that I remember you," and I told you this a couple months ago, he wrote a great article in the Lincoln Journal-Star after I was exonerated over some nonsense that had happened domestically. Unless you're in a situation where you kind of feel either threatened or somebody is gone on the offensive and you're defending yourself or not defending yourself. I always love we can't do this, you can't do that, yeah, you can't do this. And I'm like, hey, listen, when you're on the outside looking in, hindsight is a beautiful thing. I just wonder how much of that has to do with being a reflection of who those people really are. Or are you just caught up in the moment? Oh, man, you got to be better in the moment. Really? How good are you? How good are you when you can't get in the left lane? How good are you when the drive-through line takes too long? Is that right?
Yeah.
Should be better, huh?
Take a look in the mirror.
Exactly.
Brady Oltmans up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside the infamous Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers. We're having some fun here on a Monday morning. Hopefully you're enjoying the show. Mike Sauter coming up at 9 o'clock. We also have some more bracketology talk, I guess March Madness official bracket talk with Ricky O'Donnell at 9:45, so stick around for that. But before we do all of that, let's talk to Brady Oltmans, Nebraska football and recruiting reporter for Hail Varsity. We talk to him every Monday, and he's at Brady Oltmans on Twitter. Brady, good morning. What's up, man?
Morning, guys. It's a little bit chillier than I like it to be on a mid-March day, but I can't control it, so we just go with it.
It's the Midwest.
from the Midwest. So this is kind of interesting. Andrew and I have been talking basically all morning, on air, off air, quarterback situation, Nebraska recruiting. Obviously, Danny Kaline will make his announcement today. It's kind of weird. I had a couple guys over the last couple of weeks basically surmise it like this. Hey, it's got to be boom or bust with Raiola, right? Just the interest with and from Kaline hasn't been top-notch. Nebraska's got to kind of have a quarterback in the fold. It's been quiet on the other quarterback recruiting front. When you look at the quarterback situation for Nebraska in 2024, regardless of what DK says today, do you look at it as Raiola or bust, or do you think Nebraska is playing checkers and we're playing chess in terms of potential backup plans?
I don't want to say boom, because I think Raiola definitely is the number one priority and the top target. I think Matt Rhule has said at one point they've got the portal. That's how they got Jeff Sims, so they could always go portal, especially after spring ball if somebody enters the portal in that little window. And if they figure out how the roster goes, you think by the end of spring, that's about the time that they're expecting a decision from Raiola. It's interesting because Danny is really the only other quarterback that they've offered from this class. I know Nebraska is also heavily recruiting that kid Stone Saunders from Pennsylvania out of the next class. So it's not like Raiola is the only the full focus quarterback for the next couple of years. But I think there is a definitive kind of, I don't know, when you've got a top tier, top 5 overall recruit, he's going to command all the attention. But they like Danny. They've really done, I think, a good job of building a relationship with him. But I think you also have schools like North Carolina and Missouri and Miami that say, hey, we can make a move on this kid because, Nebraska's so closely tied to Dylan Raiola.
B, should we care that we're very kid glovish with quarterbacks, right? Because it's interesting. I feel like we're kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth. The, with quarterbacks, it's like, well, you know what? We don't want to bruise too many egos. We can't recruit too many. Let's just kind of get one and let them know that they're the guy. But if it's any other position, it's well, they can't be afraid of competition. They don't like competition if they can't handle it. I just kind of feel like it's a little disingenuous when we talk about quarterbacks. Should we be okay if quarterbacks don't want anyone else recruited? And this isn't, and hear my heart, and I have to be clear because aptitude can be a problem. I'm not saying Dylan Raiola doesn't want Nebraska to recruit any other quarterbacks, because that's not the case. I'm talking about the perception of quarterback recruiting.
I tend to agree with you. I think like with this Nebraska coaching staff, they're very open, transparent. They're going to be transparent and honest with recruits. If a recruit says, "Hey, it's very adamant and very important to me that you don't recruit any other quarterbacks, or I'm the only guy on your radar." If that's not how the coaching staff kind of wants to treat the situation, they'll be very upfront and say, "Ooh, well, we like this other kid, or we've got a couple of other quarterbacks we really like in this class. So why is that?" And they kind of maybe talk it out if that's the case. I tend to agree with you, though. I mean, you're a football player, regardless of position. I understand the quarterback is an incredibly important position because you touch the ball about every snap. But I mean, you're also a part of a team. You're joining a team that you are not a part of yet. And I don't know, there's a lot of football politics to be played. And like, if you're going to be a new face going onto a roster of 100 guys, non-scholarship and scholarship combined, you don't really want to be the guy calling the shots right off the bat. But I guess if you're, a prodigy recruit, sometimes you're afforded some things. Not to say that Dylan Raiola is doing that, but overall, I tend to agree with you. Kind of a quarterback is just every other player, and somebody who wants that sort of caliber of celebrity coming in is a little, to me personally, of a red flag.
Brady, Coach Rule said he's trying to catch up with the times and get better about recruiting 2024, 2025, 26, and so on. What do you make of everything you're seeing on the recruiting trail today, maybe from a general sense, and the work that this coaching staff has done to send out offers and just get Nebraska's name on athletes' radar?
Well, the timing has been very interesting because when Rule arrived, they've got maybe 4 or 5 guys on his staff right away, and they had to blitzkrieg recruiting to close that 2023 class, and they really went hard at it. And in just 2 months, they filled it out completely. And then they immediately, I guess, right after early signing day, turned a large amount of focus to the 2024 class. And I think that that's definitely helped them. I mean, the vast majority of the offers they've made in the last couple of months have been to the 2024 class. But at the same time, I think, Evan Cooper's being the evaluator. If he sees a 2025 or a 2026 guy pop on film, he's going to send it on up the ladder and say, "Hey, Matt, you gotta offer this kid or make a phone call because this kid can make our football program better down the line." And they're maybe not as aggressive as like the Ohio States or Alabamas or, your bigger programs that have a couple of commits in those future classes right away. But that is kind of the way that the game is being played right now. And they're slowly adapting, but also keep in mind, they're kind of behind the 8 ball because they did just get here.
Brady, when you're, practice will be fairly open. And folks will formulate a ton of opinions. Day one, Brady Oltmans gets to campus. What position group is he going to watch?
I'd say defensive front. I've almost driven myself crazy watching Tony White coaching clinic videos because I'm just fascinated to see how that's going to look. And honestly, I'm salivating at this point because, I mean, the way that he likes to coach his defense is something that I think Nebraska fans have not seen before ever out of the Huskers. And I'm kind of, inherently that makes you kind of excited to see it. You don't know personnel wise where guys are going to be. Sometimes they're going to be, on the outside edge in that 3-man front, or sometimes they might, move inside if they shift it to a 4-2, if they alter alignments and things. And personnel wise, they've got a very limited amount of interest or a limited amount of snaps and snap experience on that defensive interior, but a lot of athleticism on the outside. I'm going to be really curious to see how they line guys up there.
Brady, I want to circle back to quarterbacks. We started with recruiting and Dylan Raiola. One question that it seemingly feels like comes up every week revolves around the quarterback room. And we've seen preseason lists that have just included Jeff Sims. We've seen some that have included both Sims and Casey on them. Not sure if I've come across a Casey solo, but how do you envision the quarterback competition shaping out this offseason?
Well, right away, it's going to be Jeff, right? Like out in front simply by nature. I mean, Casey, I think from what I hear, his recovery has gone really well, but they still want to be very careful with him, and he'll throw, if anything at all, in the spring, which kind of makes June a little bit more important in how he picks things up. I think Casey established himself with toughness and that he can play in the Big Ten last year. I mean, people kind of forget that was a brand new system for everybody, including Casey, and he found a way to make it work. Jeff just has a little bit more athleticism, but also he's coming from a situation in Georgia Tech where he struggled to throw the ball because the program struggled to throw the ball. I'm kind of interested to see you put them both in a brand new offensive system with Marcus Satterfield, which obviously with a guy like Spencer Rattler at South Carolina last year could be successful. I mean, they lit up two of the best teams in that whole region and in the top 25 last year. So I think Jeff is just going to, by nature of injury situation, have a leg up. But I will never count out Casey Thompson, considering what he did in his body of work last year. I think it's just going to be a really interesting one. Casey's got the toughness and experience, but Jeff's also got a little bit more, I think, athletic mobility to him.
Brady, difference, competitiveness based on high-end talent or competitiveness because it's the most like talent? If you would rank defensive backs, wide receivers, and running backs, is it high end or most like one another?
I would say you've got incredible high end talent. Like Anthony Grant stands out immediately. You've got veteran guys like Billy Kemp. I mean, he's top 4, catches all time at Virginia, and he comes in. They like him as a receiver, but they're really excited what he can do in the punt return game. And then they do have a lot of bodies at defensive back, and some of them are NFL caliber guys. I mean, I think Evan Cooper has said, Miles Farmer and Quentin Newsome stand out. Marquise Buford, he's not going to be participating much in the spring because of that knee injury he suffered against Wisconsin at the end of the year, but he's going to be a very capable guy to go to. I think parity-wise and talent-wise, maybe wide receiver is going to be kind of the most jumbled group, because you have a couple of guys like a Marcus Washington or a Billy Kemp, guys who are veteran, but you also have like such, Jalen and Malachi and guys that are fresh coming in with incredible upside to them. But I think you could probably maybe mention the corners as well in that. And somebody's got to sort themselves out. Tommy Hill's back there. He kind of got beat out or moved around. Malcolm really stepped up. If Tommy Hill wants to really see the field regularly, he's going to have to try to beat out Malcolm Hartzog again. So that's kind of where that parity works out. But it also, in the long run, I think it made Nebraska's defensive secondary better last year, and it probably will again this year.
Brady, you are the man. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for being flexible too with us. We'll talk again next week.
Yeah, no problem, guys. See ya.
At Brady Oltmans on Twitter. Toss him a follow out there. Coming up, talking to Mike Sauter about the state basketball tournament over the weekend. Stay with us.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Mike Sauter.
I would agree, Damon.
Mike Sauter.
Yeah.
Mike Sauter.
Oh, man, you're going to put me on the spot.
Mike Sauter.
Welcome back. 9 o'clock, which means if you're in Lincoln, you can tune in using your dial. Turn it over to KFOR. We are on there now. Damon Bennett, Andrew Rogers, Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. If you're in town, well, that means you turn your dial to 590, or you can watch live on Twitter, live on YouTube.
Where isn't Currency?
It's everywhere.
Man.
Everywhere, especially at the state tournament. You could just look underneath the graphic.
They're a monster. So guess what?
Good on them.
Hashtag go Currency.
And nice point, because when you pointed up, it went right to the Currency logo on the screen. I know that was on purpose.
They're unbelievable.
Yeah, speaking of the state tournament, Mike Sauter was pretty unbelievable with all the content he and the Hurrdat sports team were sending out over the weekend and the week prior for the girls' state tournament. Mike, are you tired? You rested? What are you doing?
I'm feeling like I'm getting a nap in today at some point.
With Jet or without Jet?
Probably Jet will probably be in his bed on the floor.
How's the cherry eye?
It's not good. It's back, and we're probably just going to live with it after 2 surgeries for a 6-month-old dog.
It makes me hurt
for a 6-month-old dog.
Not good.
No,
he did get. I was going to say something I probably shouldn't. He got neutered the other day too. So I feel bad for my guy.
Lord knows you got to watch your tongue.
Yeah, it was.
We do not do. What's the thing we used to do when we didn't have the third hour? Morning dump.
Morning dump podcast.
So we gotta clean it up a little.
I was gonna say something about balls and
basketballs
and deflating.
Yep. Let's start.
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
What?
Let's start with kind of the totality of what you thought about the state tournament. I was joking with Andrew earlier. I was surprised, in state tournament, a lot of times it's the first time a lot of fringe C teams play. I was surprised on social media. Not a lot of people were impressed with the quality. You had a couple of halftime tweets I thought were interesting, but I know your personality. Well, you'll say things like, yeah, not good, right? Shooting statistics, efficiency. How did you kind of look at 2023 in terms of the state tournament and level of quality play?
It wasn't great, but it hasn't been really great all year. Like I said this 10 months ago, that we got so spoiled with what we saw the last 5 years that we just expected that again. And we just don't have that level of talent, right? Like for this year anyway, for sure. In the 23 class and maybe even going forward for a little bit. Like we took a dip, but we were also at the very top of the mountain for 4 years in a row. We had Chucky Hepburns, Jason Greens, Hunter Salas's, Isaac Trout's, like players that don't come around all that often. We don't see that all the time. I've compared it, the era that we just kind of left, that's only happened 2 other times in the state's history, and it was 81-82 and 91-92. It's not an every year thing. So maybe our expectations were a little too high.
Is it fair or unfair to try to, T. Mosman and I got into it. Actually, Saint was with us trying to rank this Bellevue West team in terms of greats because they're undefeated. And it's only been done 3 times since 61.
Right.
And that unto itself is unreal. But when you look at the style of play, just like what we're talking about, it may not. There are some teams that Coach Woodard has had that didn't win state that would beat this basketball team, but you have to control. You can only control who you played. Are they in a pantheon for you?
Clearly they're most dominant team. They're probably one of the most dominant teams ever. If you're looking at they were
relative to the competition. Yeah, they were unbelievable.
Yeah, they were. They outscored opponents by 759 total points this year. The second closest game that they played against an in-state opponent was outside of the West Side overtime game a couple weeks ago. Was against Gretna, that they won by 11, and they shot 39% from the field. And they still won by double digits. I think it's more has to do with relative to the competition.
Were you surprised? Andrew asked Coach Woodard, this is Thursday or Friday?
Friday, right before the game. Thursday right before the game. Yeah.
No, so it's actually Wednesday.
Wednesday right before the game.
He said, give me one word to describe this team. Did you hear what he said?
I didn't hear.
He said defense.
Yeah. They're ridiculous.
Surprise you?
No, they can just guard the out of you.
Well, first off, he said, I can't describe it in one word.
Yeah, he wanted to follow up. He wanted to expound on it.
Right.
Because he'd had some other good defensive teams. But this one was
the best. He said it after the game, publicly too, in press conference stuff. This is the best defensive team he's ever had. They also didn't lose. I think what he say is something like 80 games, close to 80 games, if you count all of June and fall leagues and all that stuff, and lost since last year's state championship. Like if you count the whole summer and everything. So defensively, they're just so good, and they don't have a shot blocker either. There isn't one. It's just they can guard you on the ball extremely well. And when you look at even their second unit, their 6 through 9 guys, they all can guard you. Even like Jaden Bullion can really guard you, and if you're a 4 or a post player, because he's so strong. Isaiah McMorris is a quick, twitchy athlete guy. Jaden Jackson clearly can guard the ball really well with his length. Josiah Doltzer's a better defender than we think. Like Jackson Stuvey can guard his position pretty well. And Robbie Garcia and Jacob Barope are fine, right? They're good athletes that move really well. They're not big lugs out there. So I think that totally makes a big difference. They're defensively, I mean, like I said, that Gretna game, I knew that's when it was like, whoa, these guys can really guard, because they shot 39% and won by
the underappreciated thing about them, though, and it's what drove me crazy Friday night, they get to every 50-50 ball.
Yeah.
So for all the other accolades we give this team, they play hard.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't even get
they
to
can
the
run the
flipping floor.
No.
I was beside myself how early on, it's 7-1. A ball is trickling around midcourt. There's 3 guys. There's one from Bellevue West. They get the basketball. Like, we undersell.
It was right at midcourt.
We undersell effort.
Mm-hmm.
They play hard.
That Jacob was sitting next to me, and I remember that moment.
Patalilla?
Yeah, I remember that moment. I go, first to the floor. And that's exactly what happened, because Stubblefield just leaned over to grab it instead of like on the floor.
Diving on the floor.
Yeah, and that's what happens.
Hey, we talked about how lucky we were to see like the ones and teams that have come before this year's state tournament, but how lucky were we to witness Coach Woodard go out with a bang like this?
Yeah, obviously, it's something that he's probably since last year, he's kind of known, and this would be the year. And really, if you look at a couple of years ago, you can peg, okay, when will it be over for Coach Woodard? When is going to be the time, right? And then you start kind of thinking, okay, Josiah, when is his senior year? That's the last one of like, that the core kind of group. Probably wait for him. And then I think we saw that emotion. Coach Woodard is not that emotional guy, like where he's hugging Josiah and it's like crying, right? That finality of that moment. But it's one, a lot of people don't know this, like Ron Doltzler and Doug. Ron coached for Doug as an assistant coach at Roncalli. I mean, they've been really good friends for a very long time. Ron still went to practice every day and helped, like, hey, 3 minutes on this drill. Like, he helped the student managers and stuff like that still. So he still went to every practice. So I think that was one, a few years ago, you just look at like, okay, when is he going to be done? And then you're like, it's got to be Josiah. Mm-hmm. And then obviously it was Josiah was the last of the group, and that did it.
Man, in Class B, like, how much of a shame was it to see Connor Milliken foul out at the end? Because, when the guy has 4 fouls and the game was getting a little ticky-tacky from the very first whistle, like, little thing here, little thing there. And I'm not sitting here to blame officials for calling the game like they did here, but addressing Milliken with 2 minutes left, I'm more of the person that says, man, you got to run away. Like, you can't be involved in that play.
Well,
you can't be.
I don't think
with how the game was going.
I didn't think it was a foul, but
it wasn't a foul. But I'm saying you can't even be around there because of how ticky-tacky it was going.
Yeah, but listen, I don't think that's realistic, right? He's one of 3, kind of trying to wall off. He's got his hands up. I thought Brodsky's post-game comments were fantastic given the moment. He's losing a son, in essence.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I mean, Scott was killing them on the foul line just because of Scott pounding the ball inside. They're the more aggressive team. They're going to go to the line. They're bigger. I thought his composure, given all that was going on that last 3 minutes, was unbelievable.
It wasn't a foul on Connor. Connor didn't. I mean, he wasn't even there. I'm not going to be I would never be a referee because I know my personality, and that wouldn't work. I'd be kicking people out left and right, like from the stands. I mean, so it wasn't a foul on him. The worst part is just guessing in that moment. Oh yeah, one of those 3 guys were over there, so it's him, right?
I don't think he got fouled. I don't think Brett got fouled at all.
I would say this. I still don't think Platteview wins the game.
If Milliken stays in?
I don't. I think Scott had all the momentum kind of in that
I
moment.
do.
So.
And listen, they outscored him 18-6 in the fourth quarter, which says a ton. And I felt like there was a stretch in the third quarter when
Trey Mosman hit 5 in a row and brought them back in the game.
Platteview had a chance to kind of extend, and the shot selection got away from them. Where I just didn't think there was a stretch, man, for about 6 minutes where they didn't take good shots.
They have a tendency to do that.
Oh, I know. I know it. And listen,
it's
and
just
all
kind of
the
what
they
they
joke.
do.
It's how they play.
Yeah, it's just kind of how they play. They were so patient with it, and it was working though, right? The whole game. It was a little bit odd to see them be a little more patient. And Connor kind of picking his spots.
Well, they couldn't keep Farron off the foul line because he didn't shoot it well. But between their ability to go down low and with Jake, how many 50-50 balls did Scott get?
A lot.
Yeah. I mean, saving, diving out of bounds. They were down. I was pretty impressed with their. Listen, you got to give, and obviously, I'm Team Milliken and Mosman because they are family. But objectively, Scott played their ass off down the stretch.
No,
they were desperate.
And they
were
turned
down.
it on in the second.
They were down.
They were very desperate. There was a play late, or I guess it was fourth quarter, and Brack misses his
the save out of bounds.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Missed it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're up 2 or something like that, 2 or 3, and he misses kind of a post move. He missed it. And he tips it to himself, and then it gets tipped again, and it's right on the baseline.
He showed really good fitness.
And then he saves the ball from going out of bounds in the corner, and they get the ball back, and his possession starts over again. And I go, that probably just won them the game.
How many surprises? Because Chalk this tournament turned out to be vastly different than I think some people thought in terms of.
Wahoo not making it at least to the semis and losing to Auburn was a bit of a surprise. Going into that game, there were 2 outcomes that were going to happen in that game. It was going to be Jim Weeks' worst loss in a state tournament game ever, which ended up probably being that in the final. Or Auburn was going to win, 42-40 or something like that, and they ended up winning 47-44. So I think that was the biggest surprise. Johnson Brock winning D1 was obviously, if you just look at seed and kind of their route, they had to beat Maywood Hayes Center and
forced a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, Maywood Hayes Center was a team that was in our top 3 all year. Johnson Brock was 7th. I think, to finish the regular season coaches poll, but they got good athletes. I saw them beat Tri-County. Nick Perriott's a really good athlete for them, and good coach, and did a nice job. So I saw them beat Tri-County, and I was like, oh, we're talking, level up, right? So for a Tri-County team that made the semifinals in what was it, C2 was Freeman's really good.
Yes,
kind of knew that they were defensively. Ashland Greenwood defensively was remarkable.
God, I have a thing for the Kissinger family.
Okay, listen. They gave up.
I really do.
They gave up 28 points to Sydney, which thought that might happen. They held Ogallala to 20.
That's a good Ogallala team too. I like Gager. I like Caskey.
Who the very next night against Concordia scored 72 and a win in the 3rd place game. And then they win the championship by giving up 24.
Yeah, but they give up 72 total points.
Yeah, 28 points, 24 and
52.
20. Yeah.
72 points. Pretty good. Jamie, my man.
In 3
Jamie would
games,
be proud of you.
yeah, in 3 games in a state tournament, that's remarkable. It's unbelievable. I did tell a couple people that I thought whoever won the Ogallala Ashland game in the semis, this was right before the game, so whoever wins this game's winning it. Like, they're just going to win. They're going to beat Auburn or Concordia. So that happened.
You're a funny dude. As Andrew's just looking at you, I thought you may be asking him a question.
Oh.
What do you think? What do you think happens?
I was watching his eyebrow raise.
I know, like
That was a
like how subtle was
the
that?
suggestive
Actually,
hinting. I think sometimes he forgets he's on video. Hey, so one thing we got to be able to do here is what with local recruiting, football. What do you think happens?
Oh, you mean today?
Well, you don't have to. Well, I mean, you can definitely speculate on that. Yeah.
K-line. Well, I think we all feel pretty good that it's not going to be Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
And if you're Nebraska, I mean, every chip, egg, card, whatever the saying goes, is in one basket at quarterback, right? So, and I think that's right. I think that's what you got to do. So, Kalen's going to announce his Bellevue West quarterback, Danny Kalen, is going to announce at noon today in a couple hours. And, he visited Colorado. He visited Missouri. He visited North Carolina. A couple times he's been in North Carolina. I'll say this. I think it's one of those 3.
That's what Sam said too.
Without giving away the farm.
I think that's the general consensus.
But I will say this, like we talked about a couple weeks ago or a month ago, we talked about how many, in-state guys and the number. I still think it's probably 3.5, 4 is, I think you probably get about 4, maybe 4.
Yeah.
You feel good about Nelson, right? Probably a little bit.
Do you?
Oh, he's just there.
Yeah, I think you've always felt good about Murphy.
I feel really good about that one. I don't know. Basically, in my opinion, it's like, what are you waiting for? Just get it done.
Is that his best offer?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So maybe that doesn't count, but maybe because it's the first and it's Nebraska.
Well, I think it's more because it's Nebraska, and
it's good to know that folks still are passionate about
Nebraska.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about that.
And
that one.
And I think McMorris and Hall are going to be wild cards.
Yeah, I would say that it's not likely on both of them.
Yeah, interesting.
Probably more. I would say probably more likely on McMorris, but I still don't. I think it's kind of like a more likely of those 2 is what I'm saying. So
I'm looking at this list, and I'm just going up and down, and I remember that number that we set. What did we say? That 3 would be like really good?
3.5.
Feel good about the Caleb Benning kid.
And you're already saying no.
See, no one even no reaction. Took a couple seconds
because even I don't know. He's not in a hurry.
But here's where I'm going. We're already saying no to 3 Bellevue West kids, and if say Caleb is that wild card, right? And you felt good about Ashton, you felt good about Carter, and then do you feel good about Caleb?
Pie from.
And if you
I don't know.
Now we're down to
that one's probably a 50-50,
right?
Yeah.
Now we're down to 2 on that list.
So here's my question: is if they get 2 of 7 or 8 or whatever the number is, whatever the number ends up being, if Nebraska only gets 2, is the honeymoon over?
Wait, 2? How did we get to 2?
I'm just saying, like. If it's only 2, is the honeymoon of Matt Rule's the greatest thing?
No,
ever?
I don't know.
Is it over? Because I think they've done a great job.
I told. I'm
just saying the narrative.
I told one of the guys, Bulk Dog. I said, the only way you could take the sting off of not cornering the market in state is if you hit home runs on March 25th. I think Nebraska fans, they'll be, I won't say fine. They'll be okay if you recruit on a national scale
versus
and they'll stomach losing a few local guys. It'll soften the blow a little. So I
just think it's a weird thing, right? Because I did publicly, I admit it, like Zane Flores was a huge miss for Nebraska, and in my opinion, I think that was gigantic, and I crushed them for it.
Yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, obviously deservedly so. So what do you know? I guess I'm interested to see what the conversation will be if it's only, if they only get 2, let's say.
Yeah,
it's very interesting, right? It's just
it is funny how DB just comes back with how did we get to 2, but it's amazing because we have those wild cards in there where you just don't know where they're going to land.
I was ready with receipts because I thought Dame was going to ask me about the all tournament team that I saw.
Well, I didn't love it.
Okay, I know. I'm sorry.
Did you want to go through it?
No, I'm just saying the one guy that I took some heat on from people was Skylan Williams, but I have the box score from the game for the championship game, and he was had a game high, not team high, 16 points on 5 of 5 from the 3-point line.
No, I understand. I think the point of contingency, if people wanted Alec Noonan, which I think I think is more than worthy of being all tournament, is he torched Millard North
in one game.
It does, but so what I expect from you guys, and I said the same thing to Jacob, we got to get out of they went further, so therefore they're more valuable. That's not the case.
This is an all tournament team, not an all Nebraska team.
No,
not an all state team.
But it is also relative to the individual performance. So it looks like it's mixed emotions. Is it a team game or is it an individual thing? Because if it's all tournament, then it's individual.
I will say this: Alec Noonan absolutely deserves to be on first team all Nebraska, or all Super State, or whatever the hell you want to call those things. He's a first team all state kid.
Sauter, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks. Sports Cleanup up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Feeling good.
Did you like that? Did you like that fight we just had?
A nice little combative argument between Mike Sauter and Damon Benning.
He shakes his head. He's like, man, I don't know why we get along.
He's like, I'm tired. I'm going to bed.
We just think differently.
Yeah. At first I'm like, okay, who's arguing what? So like, that's what I was gauging here. I like being the middleman a little bit. I don't always like to be the middleman, but I like to in conversations like that. And at first I'm like, well, no, I kind of agree with Sauter. Like, it's like his rankings. He compiled them together the way he wants to. I'm like, I'm there. And then you started explaining it a little bit more. And then I'm like, no, I feel like my pendulum is like the scale is starting to swing DB's way, because he brought up a really good point about, is it individual, but you're factoring in teams, or is this team, or why are we going the distance when we're not
the all tournament team is the all by name? It's all tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does all mean all, or does all mean if you only get so far?
All means all.
All means all. Okay. So I would ask the question again. Was there a better singular performance in the state tournament in Class A than Alec Noonan? Yeah, the answer would be no.
He belonged.
Yeah.
We belong.
Yeah.
But I do know a lot of...
And listen, and Scott Williams, I don't even think the argument is between Sky. He played well. Although I will say the total points that he had was in the same in 3 games is the same total that Alec Noonan had in 1 game.
Right.
But without Sky in the final game, that game is way out of hand.
Right. I'll tell you this much.
The better argument is between Noonan and Stubblefield, who's my guy. But I know if you called Kevin, we had this conversation, so I know.
So Kevin, you already called Kevin.
Well, we just told that's like he's family. Stubbs, how you feel you played? I didn't play well.
Not good enough.
I like it hurt your heart, right? Yeah, man. Like that WS game, that's not me. That's not me, right? So I hate the whole. It's low-hanging, easy fruit to say, well, this team went further, so therefore we should do whatever. And I don't care who the person is.
Right. I'll tell you what, though. It seems like every rankings article that comes out is centered around how far you go.
Listen, it took for years.
Whether it's
I've
right or
understood too. The
wrong.
victor goes the spoils, right?
Right.
I get it with postseason awards, but you know, somehow inexplicably, you could have guys like Jay Reed make second team all conference in the Big Ten, and he was like the third best receiver in East Lansing, right? So, okay, because I think he's a top 2-round wide receiver. Could eventually be the steal of the draft if he somehow falls to the second or third round. But having said all that, I just don't like I don't think people have the courage, not courage, but it's just double talk for, is it a team award or is it an individual performance? If it's the all tourney team, all tourney means all of the tournament. So
I'm with you.
That's
and I'm an Alec Noonan fan.
Well, and I think, and so I have to catch myself, right? Because obviously I am too, but I'm significantly closer to Stubblefield than I am Noonan. I don't really know Sky Williams that like I would say hello, but I just don't see how you look at performances relative to the team, the game, the flow of the game, and be like, that guy's not all tournament. But if he doesn't care, I don't care. I mean, it's whatever. I'm not going to die on that hill. I just think
I'm sure Alec Noonan would much rather have gone on to the semifinal and then the final than be on that list for all tournament.
Well,
team.
if he's all state, then I think he feels a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, you feel good about your individual accolade, but more times than not, you want to go far. Like you're in it for the team. You're not in it for yourself.
Zero question.
Speaking of in it for the team, you're probably thinking at home like, man, there was so much going on over the weekend, and like, how do you guys hit on everything? Well, that's what the sports cleanup's for. So we're going to do that now. The women's NCAA tournament bracket was also announced last night. Creighton was a 10 last year, and here's how that went. They got wins over Colorado. They got wins over Iowa. They got a win over Iowa State before their Elite Eight loss to the eventual national champion, South Carolina. This year, the Jays earned a 6 seed and will play the winner of the first 4 game between Illinois and Mississippi State. That's the highest seed under Jim Flannery. And let's remember this. Creighton, we're talking about teams that are hot at the right time. This Creighton women's team's hot at the right time. They've won 10 of their last 12 games. And in those 2 losses, they had a 2-point loss to UConn, and they had a 2-point loss to Villanova.
Yeah, speaking of hot, they're probably a little hot under the collar. Right, because the level of respect, they've been top 20 in the net all season, and it's just like, hey, little respect over here, So I hopefully they play with a little chippy chip on the old shoulder, because that's an easy team to cheer for.
And they are in it to cap last season's feat. Women's NIT. That's where Nebraska fell. They got the automatic qualifier in the Big Ten. They were the highest finishing team in the regular season that was not selected for the NCAA tournament. Projections had them at like a first 6 out. I think they were like the 6th team on the first 4. But remember, they had top 50 wins against Maryland, Mississippi State, Purdue, Michigan State. They went 4-11 in 15 games against teams that made the tournament. That's why they fell to where they are. They just did not meet expectation this year, even though they had everything in the bank from last year to do so.
Yeah, and had a hard time staying healthy.
Staying healthy was the big thing.
Not an indictment, but I think you have to take a look at, and I think Coach Williams and that staff, they know. I almost said Coach Gusso. Coach Williams and that staff, they know that they got to get a little more athletic around the perimeter and in the backcourt to really kind of take the next level of what they want to do. But, I mean, good on that team for taking on as much water as they did and having a chance to play in the postseason.
You talk about water, somebody that hit the ball in the water a little bit over the weekend.
Shohei Ohtani. Oh, that's right. They weren't playing near any water. Wowzer.
Nice.
Just hitting bombs.
Yeah.
Though.
Well, how about Schwarber's bomb? Did you see that thing?
Yeah, but they took an L, so I'm kind of mad.
Yeah. That thing took off, though.
Yeah. Did Korea just score again over China?
Did they?
I stopped counting. What was it? Was it 22-3 at one point? I'm 90. I don't know if that grand. It was. Remember when we just and we flipped it, but I think that Grand Slam made it 22-3. I should probably
go back and look that up.
I should probably look that up.
That is insane if that's what it ended up being.
Dude, they were playing softball.
How about
22-2?
Who was it that I saw at the Players that was it him?
In a drinky drink? Did you like that front pin location?
It was is it Tyrell or Terrell Hatton?
Tyrell Hatton.
Tyrell Hatton. Did you see what he was supposed to be paid out and then what he ended up getting paid out because of his back nine?
No.
So he was supposed to make $147,000 based on like his score going into the back nine of the Players. Guess what he ended up taking home?
$22K. You're laughing.
$2.7 million.
Oh yeah, that's. I forgot. He went Blisterine on the back nine.
Yes,
right.
He went off.
Yeah, Blisterine. Hey, that's okay though. How
Can
about
you imagine 9 holes?
No.
You just made $2.6 million in 9 holes.
I'm trying to figure out where some of my players are going to live. Do you think I know anything about $2.2 million?
Oh man,
no. But I know one thing. Like, you know what I would do? $2.2 million. I'm telling you right now, especially what's gone on over the last couple of weeks with some of the young people that I'm associated with. I'd get one of my development guys. I would build like just a quick little shell of a housing unit.
Like a fraternity house.
Yeah. Just, you could.
For your people.
Yeah.
Right? Or really anybody that needs it.
You know what I mean? And I would just, I would build that thing and be done. I would be a lot less stressed. You've heard some of my calls off air.
Oh,
I would be a lot less stressed if we just had an available housing unit with some groceries, and I would be cool.
I'll just let you know if I have another bed that comes up
and
shows up.
Do you know what? You guys could do? Like if I could afford it, I would have you guys be my shuttle to and from school. Like you would be like,
okay,
you guys would be like Uber on call.
That's fine. That's fine.
You know what I mean? Just take a couple 2-3 hours. You don't have to do it in the morning and after school.
Yeah, but we used to when we joke with my mom, she's Suber because her name's Sue, and Emily when she picked me up from the bars in college, she was Emma Lift.
So you got this down pat.
Ricky O'Donnell up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hale Varsity Radio.
Zach Edey knocks it out of bounds, and the Purdue Boilermakers are the Big Ten tournament champions.
Final 9 seconds. Everybody on their feet. Proctor grinning ear to ear. And for Duke, the dynasty continues.
Houston couldn't do it. The Tigers, for the first time in history, beat a number 1 and win the American Championships.
Here's McClendon for the win. It's no good, and Arizona is Pac-12 tournament champions again.
Welcome back as we wind this thing down. It's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hale Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning and Andrew Rogers. I know I celebrated some victories over the weekend with an ice-cold Acres Ale, including the Battlehawks winner. Once again, they are now 3-1 on the season. And if you want an Acres Ale, I'm telling you, this is one of the best beers for you. It's light, it's crisp, it's clean, it's refreshing, it's locally brewed with Nebraska corn. It's the perfect beer to pair with any sporting event that is Acres Ale.
And all along the same lines, listen, if you've been involved in a personal injury, kind of like Mike Sauter's ego, but a little bit more if it's a serious one, when we're kind of getting into debates, you got to get the fine folks that at Dyer Law. That's a team that will provide you with a helping hand no matter what you're dealing with. You can call the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals. Again, it's really easy to remember if you're in a dire situation. It's Dyer Law. That's Dyer.law.
And I'm in dire need of talking to Ricky O'Donnell now, writer, editor, associate director of programming at SB Nation, a jack of all trades at SBN_Ricky on Twitter. He's joining us via StreamYard if you are tuning in and watching the video. But, of course, you can still hear him on KFOR 590 here in town. Ricky, good morning.
Ricky, good morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, guys. What's going on?
Hanging in there.
I'm excited. It's March Madness time. It's the most beautiful, the most wonderful time of the year. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I don't know, Ricky, if you feel that way.
I sure do.
But, oh, my, what's that?
It's the most.
Oh, yeah, it was a Christmas song for sure. But I'm telling you, this tournament and the shakeout and the committee draws and things like that, I'm like, man, there's some really good ones, like really good matchups right away. There's some teams where I'm like, gosh, could you have screwed them over any more with their placement? There are some where I'm like, gosh, this is a cakewalk for this team to get there. What stands out to you most over anything else with the bracket release?
Wow, I'm still sort of digesting the bracket. Like you said, there's a ton of different storylines you can look at. But I guess the first thing is just how difficult the West is going to be. They have 4 top 10 teams in KenPom. The number 1 seed is the lowest ranked team of the 4. Then you have the Arkansas-Illinois 8-9 matchup. I think both of those teams are talented enough to go on a deep run, hypothetically. So to me, the toughest region for sure is the West. Everyone's saying that. I think it's totally true. You also got Rick Pitino in that one as a 13 seed that could be a pretty interesting first-round matchup against UConn. So
good defense.
Think right side of the bracket is pretty tough. The left side of the bracket feels like it's setting up very well for Alabama. Obviously, you can't say that with any form of certainty, but it does feel like as the number 1 overall seed, they have a pretty clear path to at least the Elite 8. So we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot going on with this bracket. That's for sure.
Ricky, I know everybody likes to jump to the 5-12s, but listen, water's wet. The 8-9s are tricky, right? The closest seeds to one another. And I don't think this year disappointed. But to the naked eye, if you're not following college basketball, you may look at Memphis and FAU and think, man, Memphis just won over a sasserless Houston team. They looked impressive doing it. But, man, FAU hammered a pretty good UAB team. I think a pretty good UAB team in a game that was a pick'em. FAU wins going away, and just like FAU for a while. Should we be paying attention to the Owls?
Oh, totally. I watched some of that conference tournament, and I thought the Owls looked unbelievable. They got a 7-1 guy inside with Vladimir.
They do. Yes, they have size. Yep.
They got multiple bucket getters in the backcourt. So I think that 8-9 game, along with Illinois, Arkansas, the FAU-Memphis game is going to be outstanding. And gosh, Memphis looks fantastic too. Does anyone have a better inside-out pairing in the country than Memphis?
They got an old experienced point guard. He's underappreciated. He's mature. Memphis is kind of scary.
Meanwhile, DeAndre Williams was born in 1996. He's 26 years old. How is this guy still playing college basketball? I don't get it, but he's awesome. And I think like with Memphis being more built around DeAndre Williams' talents, this year the team just sort of fits better than trying to, integrate a 5-star freshman center next to him like they have the last couple of years. And Kedrick Davis has been unreal too as the transfer from SMU. So I think that's going to be such a fun game. I have Memphis, but I think the winner of that game can very easily take down Purdue, and that's really no shade at Purdue. It's more a compliment to how talented both Memphis and Florida Atlantic are.
We're talking about my teams, right? Because FAU has
Are you
been a
going
team
to brush
of
your
mine.
teeth?
No.
I thought you were going Colgate.
No,
I'm sorry.
Oh, I am going Colgate.
I knew it.
You're right. All right. I was wondering where you were going there. So Colgate's my other team here. And Ricky, let me tell you why. So Colgate has been on my radar because they were a lot like Creighton for a while and still are in regards to not fouling. When they defend, they just do not foul. And they're a team that shares the ball really well, too, on offense. I mean, they rank in like the top 3, and I know they're the number 1 team in not fouling a game. I think they only average like 12.9 fouls a game. But they get a 15. This good of a team gets screwed over and gets a 15 and has to play Texas right away. Texas may be the so-called 1 seed up in the Midwest with how Houston is kind of shaken out and the unknowing of Sasser playing or not. Like, oh my God, I couldn't get over that last night that Colgate got a 15. They should have easily been, in my opinion, a 13.
I can't give you too many Colgate hot takes, to be totally honest, but I did just pull up their stat page on KenPom. They're the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country. 41% from 3 as a team.
Yes.
They got to up that volume, though. They don't take a ton of them. So I think if you're going to beat a team like Texas, and you're the underdog, you need to, you need variance on your side. Get up and down, and jack threes. So we'll see Colgate. That'd be quite the story if they could pull the upset there.
Ricky, I'm just going to stay with kind of the upset talks. We don't get a lot of smart guys, so I have to take advantage when you're on. 2 that I like. Big Kent State guy. They don't get good against 2-point field goal percentage. They keep assists down. They really make you play ISO ball. Kent State's going to be a handful for a team in Indiana that turns it over a little bit with a shaky backcourt. Still no Johnson, Hood Schifino figuring it out. And Furman and Virginia. Furman's going to give Virginia all they want. I'm an ACC honk, so I'm concerned. Which one of those 2 games do you like as the more dangerous of the 2 for the higher seed?
Well, I would take Indiana over Virginia. Virginia, to me, just seems primed for an upset. I just don't think that team can score consistently enough to actually win a few games in March. So I'm liking Furman in that. I really like Indiana. Like right now we're working on a story ranking the 50 best players in the tournament and doing that exercise. I'm like, man, Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, he's got to be 2 or 3 or maybe 1. He's just a phenomenal player. But like you said, Indiana doesn't have a ton around him. I think Hood Schifino's good. The Xavier Johnson injury obviously hurts quite a bit, but Indiana just doesn't really have the role players around the Hood Schifino, Jackson Davis pairing
They don't shoot it well enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, Miller Kopp, Race Thompson. We've got a few guys who have been around for a while, but yeah, like the supporting cast leaves you wanting a little bit more. But I could talk myself into an Indiana run too. So I'm going to say Furman is the more likely upset pick just because I'm doubting Virginia more than anything else.
I'm just being objective, Ricky. Full disclosure, as Andrew will tell you, I've been on the Indiana hype train all year in the Big Ten as a complete team because they know who they are. They turn the ball over too much for me in the backcourt. Let me ask you about another 5-12 with we're very familiar with Darren DeVries around here. His son Tucker is a phenom. Miami, outside of the hot Duke team, is playing the best basketball of anybody in the ACC probably over the last third of the season. Any 5-12s that you like, starting with that one?
Yeah, I saw Drake in person the last game of the regular season. I'm actually living in Des Moines now. My girlfriend moved me from Chicago to Des Moines. So I saw that team up close because I'm nearby now, and they are really good. First thing that jumps out about Drake, they got like 4 25-year-olds on the floor. And, I think people like me maybe get a little too carried away with the impact of the one-and-done recruits and, guys' projection to the NBA. But college basketball is an old man's game if you want to win at the highest levels of the sport. And I think Drake has a pretty unique opportunity to do that. They went to the tournament in 2021. Now you add perhaps the best player in recent program history in Tucker DeVries. So I think that team is awesome. They got a good big man in Brody. They got Roman Penn in the backcourt, who's an experienced guard. I could see that, but man, I like Miami too. I mean, I saw Miami, did they go to the
I think Wong's a stud.
Wong and Nigel Pack with his $800,000 raining threes. I think that he's been worth the money for the Hurricanes. There's no doubt about that for his name, image, and likeness deal. But does Miami defend enough? Does Miami have enough size inside? I like Jordan Miller, but he's like kind of a small forward playing center, it seems like sometimes. So that's a great matchup. What was the question? Any other 5-12s I like?
Yeah.
Spinning through the bracket real quick. All right, let's go Oral Roberts over Duke. That's got to be the best game of the
Listen, Oral Roberts is better than a year ago, even though they're minus a stud, but they still have Asmus.
Duke's
their supporting cast is so good, but I'm telling you, Duke is legit right now when they're healthy.
So good.
Yeah, once they got Jeremy Roach balling and playing at his best level, Duke is really good. God, I want to pick Oral Roberts in that game, though, because we know they can hit threes.
Don't we all?
Best day of the year on the sports calendar is the day Duke loses. Will that still be the case without Coach K? I don't know if we can celebrate it the same way, but
Ricky,
I think that Oral Roberts Duke game is going to be awesome.
Ricky, you killed it. This was so good. We'll have to do this again soon.
Appreciate you, Ricky.
Thanks, guys.
Ricky O'Donnell at SB_Ricky on Twitter. A lot to still unpack. We'll continue Selection Sunday talk and the first 4 games tomorrow. But for that'll do it for the show this morning. For Damon Benning, I'm Andrew Rogers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.